Alright, before we get back into streaming releases, let's go into a couple more theatrical releases, and I think I want to start with Beast, which the only thing I knew going in was it was a lion movie starring Idris Elba, and that's about it. I think I had the vague idea that he was, like, on some sort of vacation with his family when this lion would strike, but once again, that's really all I knew. So, um, going into it, it does set us, after we get this sort of tone-setting opening scene, and lets us know how violent our villainous lion is going to be. We do get a lot, I want to say nearly half an hour, in a movie that's only an hour and a half to begin with, of just this sort of family dynamic with Idris Elba and his daughters and the family friend with Sharlto Copley, and setting up them coming out here and then ultimately where they're going to get stranded with this lion. And I usually would praise something in any other context. Typically, you would praise a movie, especially like this, that's willing to put so much into its characters and so much time into saying this is sort of emotionally establishing the character so that when all these payoffs come out later, then it'll mean something. Even if the movie is seemingly a bit over the top about itself in every other aspect, it'll add this sort of human element to it to set up the characters this much. But honestly, there was just so much cliche going on with this backstory and with these characters that I kind of had a hard time getting invested in that whole thing. Where we do have, they're a grieving family, and they've lost the mother, and the father has been distant, and one of the daughters in particular is resentful towards him. There's the relationship between Elba and Sharlto Copley, where it's like they know each other because of his wife. Like that was the kind of connecting piece to them, and that sort of brings them together more, and they have questions about each other and stuff like that. And it's a lot of character stuff for a while. And like I said, I would really admire this in any other movie like this to devote this much time to it, but I said I kind of just wasn't really feeling that much. I was kind of just waiting for it to be a lion movie, because when you kind of lose investment and stuff like that, it's like part of you just wants it to be, just what it is at its core. Just if you're gonna be this over the top campy lion movie, then just kind of go ahead and be an over the top campy lion movie. And you have to deal with stuff like, oh, the kids are appalled because there's no Wi-Fi out here, stuff like that. You get shit like that for a while as it goes on, but yeah, then everything comes together, and we get stuck in this situation, and this rogue lion is running around on a rampage, and they're stuck out here with it, essentially. And yeah, talking about it being potentially an over-the-top campy lion movie, I did kind of go in knowing a little bit about the concept. I was expecting at least a little bit of camp as far as it goes, but it's actually not. It plays itself pretty seriously. Even in the moments that could be seen as over the top, the movie tries to put them in as serious of a context as it can. And while that sounds like it might be the wrong path, I do think, and the more I was thinking about it as it was going, was like, if this did go campy, like, from the word go, and then, like, kind of tried to embrace that as it went, like we've praised many movies before for doing, I feel like this movie probably would have gotten too ridiculous. So I think it actually ends up working in its favor that it's a campy concept that's played seriously and acted seriously, especially by Elba and Copley. But, that's still... What's interesting, though, is that the idea of taking it seriously when the whole concept is the fact that there is essentially an evil lion, and I'm not just saying that because, I mean, he is a provoked lion, and that's the way that he is, but at the same time, there is a sort of side character here that literally refers to the lion as the devil. And so they set it up like it's going to be, because I had also initially thought going in that it was going to be like, they were just kind of stuck in the desert, and there were, just lions in general. I wasn't quite aware that it was just literally one villainous lion. Which is actually, and I guess in that sense you can look at, the giveaway to that should have been literally the title, where it's not called Beast plural, it's just Beast. But then again, you can also look at it as another big part in this is poachers, and poachers are the characters that obviously set the whole thing off to begin, that piss the lion off to begin with. So it's like, oh, is the beast also man, or the poachers, or something like that? And it's like, you could go down that route, but I don't think the movie wants to focus on that too much. But it's like, but yeah, there are poachers here also that could be seen as antagonists, but obviously our main antagonist is this rampaging lion that's working alone. And we do have, and there might be a few things in here that seem pretty familiar. There is a point in time, that's very extended period of time, where the family is trapped inside of a car with the lion outside, and I'm sure just ad nauseum there's been comparisons to Cujo and references to Cujo with other people talking about or reviewing this movie, but yeah, I'll throw myself onto that pile as well. Yeah, it's like Cujo for a while, just with a lion. So there's that. One portion of the movie that I think works well enough that it probably should have been maybe longer or a bit more of the movie is the idea that when the first attack happens and then they end up trapped in the car, Sherlock Copley's away from them after already suffered a bite to his leg, and he's kind of taken shelter under a tree somewhere with the lion kind of in that vicinity, and they have to communicate with him through a walkie-talkie where Elba has to guide him as to how to repair himself and fix himself so he doesn't bleed to death. And it's like that sort of communication, like it kind of being a bit of a survival movie from two different perspectives that have contact with each other while this lion's kind of, circling the vicinity. That probably could have been the whole movie, because like I said, the movie has a very swift runtime anyway. And it could have been that simple for the whole runtime, but they do add a lot of different situations and characters and stuff like that throughout it. But like I said, the simpler this could have been, the better it probably would have been for it. But as is, it's not bad for what it is. It's probably a little better than I was expecting it to be, honestly. But if we're talking about the rogue lion being one of the big factors here, one thing that's going to come into play is how good is the CGI, or how bad is the CGI. Because obviously these aren't going to be real lions or anything. And there's times where they actually look pretty good. But then there's instances where it looks really fake. And what's interesting is sometimes these are in the same scene or the same moment. Like, the times you can really kind of get a look at the details is at the beginning, when there's two lions here and they're like up against Copley's character and he's petting them. And so you're kind of really looking there like what it looks like when his hand makes contact with something that's clearly not there. And it's like there's times where it's really detailed, where like he like pets them on the head here and like their mane goes down and like their eyelid kind of comes up because he's in that area, like that. But then there's other times where he makes the same motion and it's like nothing moves. Like not even the main moves. So it's on and off as far as the quality of the CGI, but that's something else where it could have probably been terrible and it wasn't, at least. But it's not exactly flawless either, so yeah. As far as it being this sort of thrilling movie, if they're not going to go for the camp factor, they do have to make it sort of exciting. And make it feel like the stakes are here. And for the most part they do, though things are mainly brought on by the fact that these daughters cannot sit still literally to save their lives. So there's probably, I could see a lot of irritated audience members every time the daughters just kind of do something they're clearly not supposed to do, or something that's going to endanger them even more, seemingly willingly. But there were still moments here where like pretty much any time the lion will just pop out of somewhere, there's like an actual genuine sort of thrill moment. Sort of like if you want to take a Cujo moment, like the scene in Cujo when he just appears and like it's a jump scare and he's like halfway through the window before we realize that he's even there at all. It's like that, right away, instantaneous. But there's moments like that, but it's, for the most part, it's sort of feels like they're kind of dragging out the same kind of moments, and like I said, putting them in situations that are clearly avoidable, if not for how reckless the daughters are. But it's and they and I talked about it being an asset that it has a swift runtime, but even with the swift runtime, there is stuff in here that feels like padding. A lot of it involving like him having visions of his wife or dreams about his wife, and I can get it from the perspective of it's like to show that those are like his deep fears or some of the stuff we see in his dreams here. And it's like we kind of got in another Lion movie with the Ghost in the Darkness. We had another very similar like dream sequence that kind of felt out of place, but still shows like the character's fears. So it's like it's there for a reason, but I don't think it's necessary. It's clearly there because the movie would have been too short without it, probably. But I do think the thing that keeps it afloat, apart from just those thrills here and there, and when it does kind of embrace its over the top nature, but not too much, is the fact that Elba does have something to bring to this in particular, because we've talked a lot about it, and there's been a lot of talk about how Idris Elba is just this really incredible actor, so extremely talented. So it's really weird how his filmography is not great. Like his filmography is as consistently not great as he is consistently great himself. It's this really bizarre thing, his career. But he's bringing something here. Like the moment when he's operating on Copley's leg, and he's like doing that while simultaneously like talking to his daughters, and and you just get this sense of control around him. That's something that he can really bring just with his presence and just the way he talks to people. And so that brings something to this movie that might not have been there with just any old random action person or whatever in this role. So there's that. As far as it getting towards a climax, I do think that I was starting to think like at first like this feels like it would have been a Liam Neeson movie like 10 years ago or something. And then as it went on, I started to think like I wonder if the people that were disappointed in The Grey, if this is the movie that they wanted. And the climax specifically, where it's like, is this what people wanted the ending of The Grey to be? I kind of feel like that's what this movie might be. So if you were one of those people, maybe this is what you're looking for. Like I said, despite its concept, it's not bad. I do think it could have been a bit more thrilling, and like I said, I do appreciate that they didn't go too over the top and make it too ridiculous. But it does feel like there's things missing here where it's like if just one or two things have been different, it might have been much better. But as it is, it's just this very average movie that might serve its purpose when you're watching it, but it's not going to have like staying power or anything like that. But it's fine. So let's go on to Bodies, 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 which I've been interested in for a little while. Not necessarily just because of the concept, because we've kind of seen the concept before, where like a game gets out of hand and then it starts to become real life and stuff like that. But the thing that was really grabbing me was this movie has an amazing cast list. Like, before you know even anything about the characters, just looking at who is in the movie will make you say, oh my god, I love all of those people. Uh, and so the two, there is, we'll get into it, but one thing I did hear going in that was kind of really hyping this up also was there were a lot of Scream comparisons, which it is a very specific comparison once you've seen the movie, because it is like, when you think of like, oh, it's, you know, this generation's Scream, Scream puts a very particular image in your mind, and it's like, it's not, I don't think it's going to be what people think it is if they go in with that mindset, that it's like a new generation Scream. But I do think the Scream comparisons are accurate in the way they come in, where it's like it's satirizing a generation, but it's also pretty much a perfect representation of that same generation. And it's so in that sense, it kind of becomes a time capsule of the era, especially by way of like how the characters communicate in their language and the terminology and stuff like that. And the idea of how fine of a line there is between satire and accuracy toward, like, of portraying the subject that's being satirized And so, kind of showing just how fine that line is, because the finer the line between accuracy to the subject and satire, the funnier it's going to be and the more effective it's going to be. And this really finds that sort of sweet spot, like Scream did in that way, is where I believe those comparisons are coming from. And talking about how much time they spend on the characters, like we were just talking about with Beast, but it's much more effective here. Um, I did find it interesting that typically in a movie like this, it's kind of this sort of horror thriller concept. The movie's getting a really big hurry to remind you. Like usually there'll be an opening, like They Slash Them we just talked about, had to have that opening scene where somebody was killed before it went into everything else. But the thing that I love about this is that there's about half an hour of lead in. Once again, very swift hour and a half runtime, like Beast, and also like Beast, pretty much half an hour devoted to the characters. But the thing is that's so interesting about this is with the lead in, like everything that comes before they start playing the game does not feel like a horror movie or a thriller in any way whatsoever. It just feels like it's a movie about these people, and that, nothing really bad is on the horizon except the hurricane that's coming, which is why they've gathered in the first place for this party. But so there's still. So there's not something overly ominous that's kind of giving you clues like this is going to be a thriller at some point. But I feel like there's just enough there with the hurricane looming, where it does feel like it's mainly about the characters if you go in totally blind. But there is a little something there that something is looming. And the way that, not just that, but also how there is hostility in the characters. But the way that they really play this up in this mysterious way, where we start off with the couple, a fairly new couple, who are Amanda Stenberg and Maria Bakalova, and how they come in, and it seems like this is a gathering of friends that have known each other for a long time. This is going to be a great party, and everybody's going to have a great time. And then when they show up, there's just sort of immediate hostility, not from everybody, but from at least a couple. But not only is there kind of hostility towards them, or passive-aggressive hostility, I guess you could call it, there's also already, like, within the people that are already here. Like, there's clearly a reason that Pete Davidson really doesn't like Lee Pace. And, like, there's just so much here where, like, there's enough here that's really off. But yet, once again, you don't really get the sense if you were to go in blind, I can't imagine people getting the sense it's going to be a thriller at some point, or a horror even, if you want to go that route. But there is definitely something in the air with these characters. So just immediately, this first half hour, that's not even a thriller or a horror movie, is very fascinating, trying to figure out, like, how these people are connected, why do these people feel this way about these people, and all that. And there's a whole lot to take in here. And the way Stenberg and Bakalova especially are interesting to watch throughout the whole movie, because both of them are kind of hiding things, and they're both those characters where it's like, because we start off with them, we as audience members kind of feel like, oh, we know them. They're young and in love, and that's pretty much all we need to know. And it's like, there's so much more. And as it goes on, it's like, oh, we don't know these people at all. And especially in a movie like this, where everybody's a suspect and everybody's accusing everybody, is really, really interesting. So that's pretty much the perfect way to build up characters like that for a movie like this. But then going in also, we have Pete Davidson, whose house we're here at, and who is the best friend of Amanda Stenberg, and I don't really have much to say about him here other than the fact that just the same thing I say every time Pete Davidson comes up when I'm talking about a movie that he's in, is there's just something about him, I just like him. And it's like, I know he gets a lot of hate, but there's just something about him where, like, I'm just sort of drawn to him. And I feel like he's been so good in the movies he's been in up to this point, small parts or big parts. And I feel like he's perfectly cast, and he plays it perfectly. And that's really all I can say about that. Another person that I was really, really excited about, especially since I was hearing before, after this came out of the festivals, was that Rachel Sennett was being called out as, like, very much a high point of the cast and like kind of the MVP of the cast. And of course, last year, any chance I could get, I was praising Shiva Baby, which she's just absolutely incredible. And it's like after Shiva Baby and this, like basically being back to back, this like anytime she's in something now, it's gonna be really exciting. And the way that she has to play this character, where it's the character that kind of feels like everybody kind of secretly has something against, and how she's kind of the one that's a bit more, she's gonna have the loudest voice, I guess you could say. And in an array of loud voices here, she's the one that kind of stands out. But like as it goes on, there's a point in time where she has what I guess you could call a monologue, a frantic monologue about the perils of building a podcast. And it's like, especially in the context of where we are in the movie when this speech comes in, it's equally hilarious and heartbreaking. Like it's like heartbreaking in a way. It's really weird, and it's like I said, the way she also seems like she's right at the center of how there's so many passive aggressive relationships going on here, and like she's really finding the peak of her performance as the emotions around her are peaking also, and it's just kind of this perfect storm, quite literally, given that it's set in a hurricane. And so yeah, like anything Rachel Senna's gonna do from here on out, I'm just completely here for. Now another person who's just really good in this is Lee Pace, because for a while there it almost feels like he's kind of in the background, but then like and it seems like he's more talked about than he's actually featured. Where it's like he's like I say, he's usually just like in the other room, or he's just kind of hanging out in the background or something. But what he plays so well here is he's so out of place with everybody else because he's like a lot older, and he seems more, while everybody else has all this like animosity towards each other and he's an outsider, he's like the most comfortable person at this party. And the way he plays that, where it's like, because of all this, he should easily be the shadiest character and the most suspicious character, but he's probably the most likable, it turns out. Like just the way he interacts with everybody, and still being an outsider. There's like multiple times in this movie where I felt bad for him, and it's like, it's interesting where this is coming from, because it's like, this is definitely the shadiest guy here, and he should absolutely be the most suspicious. But it's like, I kind of really like this guy, and he's doing really nothing wrong. The only thing he's seemingly doing wrong is he's just older than them. But yeah, see, so that addition, and the way it plays on the dynamics of the characters and how it kind of goes against everything you'd expect from this group when you first get a look at them. Like I said, just is so good at setting up what's going to happen throughout the rest of the movie, and how you're going to, like I said, once the accusations start going around. And it's interesting when things start to get frantic here, because obviously with the hurricane going on, the power's going to go out. But so the idea now is like, how's this going to be lit if a lot of this is going to be set in the dark? And they do the ingenious thing, for starters, of already introducing the fact that Rachel Sennett has those, like, glow necklaces and bracelets on her. So there's that great moment when the power goes out for the first time, and that necklace and those bracelets are the only things we can see for a minute. And it's like the way they use their phones as flashlights, and this could have been a movie where a majority of it was just wandering around in the dark and you have no idea what the hell's going on or who they're running into. But we kind of talked about this with Nope, except with Nope it was all exterior scenes, whereas here it's all interior, the dark scenes. They're shot in a way where, even though we can tell it's pitch blackness, you can still see. It's like really, really well done as far as the way it's lit. And especially that's gonna be, it's gonna keep the movie from feeling redundant, because that's something that happens a lot with movies like this, where it's just wandering around in the dark for a while. Is after a while you grow tired of it. But it's like when you can actually see who's who and what's going on, and can piece together like how the suspense is ramping up, then that's your whole thing there. Like, that's your solution to the fact that your movie's set in the dark in one location, and how much you can actually make that work when so many movies fail at it. There's one, talking about limited locations. There's a scene that's set in a gym in this movie at one point, and the way the suspense builds in this scene alone is pretty incredible. And it's like there's one particular character where you're really not sure what they know and what they don't know, and if they're playing everybody or if they're not. And the way this builds on that, and the way none of the characters seem to know what's going on here all at once. Like I said, and I think that's what works too, is the way we have like long scenes where these moments where it's like it's gonna be a movie of everybody accusing everybody, but then you have like these really long scenes that play out, that are all dialogue heavy, where it's secrets are being revealed and things are being found out about characters. Like I said, that we would have thought we knew, but then just the more things come out, the more it's like, oh, the as far as we, the audience, all these people are strangers. And it's like watching that as the accusations fly around, and it's like you're never quite sure what to think. And in a movie like this, that has this, mystery surrounding it, that's pretty much perfect. And it's like, and I love that the added mystery also. It's almost like something out of a play or like a classic mystery or something. There's one character that is repeatedly referenced throughout that is mostly unseen. And it's like this is just somebody that's just known by their name that we haven't seen. And it's like just little elements like that really make all the difference also, and kind of continue to add to the air of mystery surrounding everything. Um, and of course, just the general concept of they were already playing a murder mystery game, and then the movie becomes a murder mystery, and it's like just watching the characters become so confused as like developments happen, and then it's like, is this a development in the game or is this a development in real life, and everybody getting everything mixed up, and it's like, it's fun. It's such a fun mind game, this movie is, and it's one of those ones where now that once you know everything and everything is on the table and you realize all the pieces and what they are and how we got from point A to point B, how we got from the beginning to the end, you kind of immediately want to see it again, to see it from a totally different perspective, because it's one of those cases where it's like the first time it's going to be one movie, the second time it's going to be a completely different movie, and that's really, and when you can pull that off, that's pretty incredible. um, but it's not just that. I also want to rewatch this as soon as I can, just because of the entertainment value. Because the cast is so great. Like, the other two girls that I haven't mentioned are the actresses that I don't quite recognize, and I'm not sure if I've seen them in other things or not. But the whole ensemble is great. Like I said, I mainly gushed about the people that I recognize, but they're just as good. It's a whole ensemble. Like I said, people were even saying that Rachel Sennett was the MVP, but I'm not sure. Just based on a first viewing, I'm not sure I can even pick an MVP because everybody's so good. Like I said, Lee Pace really stood out to me. But like I said, just pretty much everybody does. Like I said, especially Stenberg and Baklova, because they're the ones that were kind of with the whole time. But it's like the way they can sort of hide things in their performances, and then it's like the performances change the more we find out about them. And it's like they kind of adapt to what we know and what the other characters know about them. It's yeah, it's all really well done. I liked this movie when I turned the camera on to do this video, and now that I've talked about it, just talking about it, I like it even more, I think. So I can only imagine what another viewing is going to do, but I'm excited to find that out. So yeah, so I think I can leave this at this. So the next thing is going to be a couple more reviews. The New Orphan, and hopefully finally 13 Lives. I'm like really procrastinating on watching 13 Lives for some reason, but hopefully that'll happen. And then we'll pretty much be finishing out this month, and then September and October are going to be full of movie stuff from beginning to end, so hopefully that's fun. I've been working on it for quite some time, so we'll see how all that plays out. So until whatever the next thing is, I think that's it.